Hey wrestling fans, it's Shawn from the Scumbags Wrestling. Have you checked out our latest t-shirt design? It's inspired by our friends over at London Comic Con. Nigel Lewis of NCL Studios came up with this amazing design of a comic book cover. It features 22 stars of the Ontario independent wrestling scene, including Cody Diener, Jody Threat, Casey Spinelli, Tyson Dukes, Brent Banks, Tarek, Sebastian Suave, Halal Beefcake, graduates of the Tyson Dukes Wrestle Factory, and many more. You can get your t-shirt for just $30 or buy the poster for $15. Proceeds from this sale are going to go to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto on behalf of Steven's Wrestling Journey. Steven's an 8-year-old fighting Chiari malformation, and they're searching for a cure. You can contact me either through our Facebook page, Scumbags Wrestling, or email me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Get yourself a great t-shirt with an amazing design and help a wonderful cause at the same time. So contact me today and get your shirt or poster. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2 of our special Greatest World Champions tournament. Yes, episode 2, second bracket. What are you doing with the fingers? Yes, Chris Maloney trying to take over, even though he's told me that I'm leading the show.
Hey, guys, episode 23 of TNT. Go back and see what Shawn Bates' gestures and hand movements were while I was doing my intro. So, yeah, continue.
So... we are doing episode number 2, this South bracket. It started off as a thought of how do we do our normal format of 16, and Chris thought maybe we do 32, and it grew to 64 with 4 brackets of 16 leading up to one final night on TNT in just a few weeks on a Thursday night live. But you're joining us for episode number 2. If you joined us last week for episode number 1, you would have noticed that Chris Jericho ended up winning that bracket to the dismay of Steven and of Chris Jones. But they were all outvoted by Chris Maloney, Clarence, and myself. And this week we go with bracket number 2 on the South. We'll be joined by Stephen O'Neill, heading from Toronto, Ontario. They're getting their freedom, some of their things back later on tonight.
Phase
2. Unfortunately, down in Windsor where in-laws are, they're still going to be on phase 1, unfortunately. But also Chris Jones is joining us. He's going to be not voting this week, so we have odd numbers, not even numbers, to make the voting better instead of trying to do a coin toss or however you would try and figure out how to solve a tie. But Chris is going to end up providing some know-how on the side if we end up missing anything, and we'll share that along the way. Plus, we'll bring Chris back in to talk about the ups and downs of each round and any shocking twists or complaints that he would have gone a different route and why did we decide to go this route. But Chris is going to be just with us. We'll start off quickly. Guys, how are you? Chris Maloney.
I'm good. It's indifferent weather here in London right now. It's the humidity's died. But the fact is, trees were all over the place and looked like it was going to be somewhat of bad weather taking place. I haven't seen anything yet, but I know Kawarth was getting tornadoes and stuff like that. So, but it's been good. Looking forward to TNT without Shawn this coming week. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, Shawn's going to be on hiatus on TNT this week, so you'll see a few different changes. But he is hanging out with the wife this coming week. So if you're looking for Shawn, as we record this now, go somewhat live Wednesday on YouTube. But you will not see Shawn on TNT on Thursday for a good reason, but we may have some comments from him. But other than that, everything's good. Stephen, how about yourself? How's that?
Good. We had some rain. Now it's humid as shit again. It was humid, then it rained. Now it's sun's going down, but it's still really humid, and it's supposed to be humid again tomorrow. But we can go drink on the patio tomorrow and get our hair cut and go to the mall and do all that. So I have a haircut planned for early next week. And
which one?
Which one? What?
Which hair is what he's referring to?
I got a few here. Don't worry about it. I'm excited. I think some people will be surprised by some votes. I think done quite a bit of research today, so
it's going to be an interesting bracket. Jonesy, you've been doing a lot of research on this, but how are you doing overall?
I'm doing pretty good. The weather is not bad in the falls. They're opening some stuff down at the falls. You can go zip lining. The Ferris wheel's open. But
Mario Kart.
Sorry?
You can go Mario go-karting now.
Yeah, you know what? That Mario Kart, I have no desire to be on it unless I was just by myself. It honestly does not look that exciting.
It's so much fun.
I'm sure it's fun, but they need more lights. They need actual music that you can hear. They need more to jazz it up. Like, they built an awesome thing. I like it. It's cool looking, especially if you go on Google and see the construction phases of that whole area. It's just amazing over the last 10 years. That thing's actually on what was my favorite swimming pool as a kid. Anyways, I'm just praying for some of my guys here. I know Orville Brown's got a good shot, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, speaking of what's going on tonight is, as I said, the South bracket. We haven't really given much away, so it's still always a surprise for people to tune into and see who's competing against each other. But like the opening where we saw the 64 competitors, last week we also had a video of the 16 competitors matched up. For this round, we have that same video, just replacing this week's competitors. So, Chris, if you want to put that up, we'll see what the tournament's going to look like and get things going.
There's a picture of...
And we are back. As you see, that's the 16 that we are going to be judging on this week and see who comes out to meet up with Chris Jericho in the final four brackets that we're going to do. Was hoping Jones wasn't going to be gone just yet, but we thank him for checking in with us. Oh, he's back.
Just like that.
Before we start getting going, Jones, what do you see coming up? Any tough matches?
Well, I'll tell you right now, my picks would have been Orton, Omega, Savage, Joe, Flair, Overall Brown, Luthez, Daniel Bryan, and Antonio Inoki.
So, yeah, we'll see if any of your predictions come true, and we'll catch back up with you after the first round.
All right, I'm going to go watch Overall Brown match.
Thanks a lot. So, yeah, guys, we're going to start this off. Chris kind of surprised me that I'm hosting. It was kind of hinted at last week, but I didn't prepare for that, to be honest. But I did. I know, Steven. But I did do the brackets and figured out so we didn't miss people. But that meant I was starting. So I'm going to continue this and not confuse my list. And I'm starting off with match number 1 with Randy Orton taking on John Cena. Now, we saw these guys so many times in the WWE that it was almost excruciating to watch at times. It was like, how many more matchups and combinations can you find and stipulations? But they ended up pulling it off, but thankfully they haven't for a few years now. But if we look at some of the things that they have for accomplishments, I'm looking at things like titles that they've held, especially since we're talking about greatest world champions. And in a way, also, I look at the PWI viewpoint of things because that's overall voted by fans as opposed to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, which is Dave Meltzer and a couple of his friends possibly. So I give more credibility to PWI because the fans' point of view and how they impacted, especially with their career. So you look at Randy Orton, feud of the year against Triple H in 2009, most hated in 2007 and 2009, most improved in 2004, most popular 2010, rookie of the year 2001, wrestler of the year 2009 and 10, and he was number 1 in PWI 500 in 2008. For titles, 9 WWE championships, 4 world titles, 1 US and 1 IC on his way to getting those larger world titles. You switch to the other side and you look at John Cena, feud of the year in 2006 against Edge, 2011 against CM Punk, match of the year in 2007 against Shawn Michaels, 2013 against Daniel Bryan, 14 against Bray Wyatt, 16 against AJ Styles. Most improved in 2004, most improved in 2003, most popular in 2004, 5, 7, and 12. Most popular decade, 2000, 2009, wrestler of the year in 2006 and 7, PWI 500, he was number 1 in 2006, 7, and 13. As for titles, OVW Championship 1 time, 13 WWE time champion, 3-time world champion, and he had 5 U.S. titles getting his way there and in between. So when you look at these guys on paper, they have a lot of gold going on between them. And yeah, it's hard to actually pick. Randy Orton has actually lasted longer than Cena, but then Cena's been able to transition into a movie career. And he's also done probably the most Make-A-Wish wishes in history. Trying to figure that, as one of the things that Chris Jones put up here, over 600 Make-A-Wish appearances for kids. So he's got so much going on for him. Legacy-wise, I got to go with John Cena. Moving on. Chris, what's your thoughts?
Hey, Steven, guess what? You're going to be tiebreaker here. So first round match, first of the South bracket. So you have Cena, Orton, both guys basically this and this as far as their careers go, as far as coming up, as far as being in the WWE goes. But the fact is, when it comes down to it, it comes down to this. Shawn had mentioned this. Hollywood actor John Cena, who I honestly just watched a movie with him in the other night called, what the heck was it, Blockers or something like that, which that, in the Bumblebee movie, that became his career. So it's like comparing The Rock. It's like, how much can you, the Rock accomplished quite a bit, but the fact is he still left the business. Cena, same sort of thing, still left the business. Now you got 16 world championships compared to 13 world championships. But the fact is, when it comes to Orton, and this is all the way back to SummerSlam 2004, I believe, when it comes down to it, Randy Orton has carried himself like a champion, and a championship has meant more to the career of Randy Orton than it has to John Cena. Now, in saying that, if you were to put the two against each other as far as who should be on Mount Rushmore, Cena for sure, because the fact is he's like the Undertaker. He really doesn't need that championship. He knows how to carry himself. But when you talk about the legacy, the career, what that guy has meant to that championship, and here you got two WWE entities going at each other. The fact is, and as Shawn has said, they had fought each other to the point of almost getting sick and tired of each other. But I think it was that unification match, I think, is the one that stood out the most to me. And Randy Orton ended up taking that one. The fact is, John Cena was the chaser in that. But the fact is, Randy Orton, like I said, always made that championship feel more relevant than John Cena. So it's not a case of, hey, he won a championship here, he won a championship over here. It's the fact is, these guys are basically brought up together like brothers together, had the same kind of careers. But the fact is, when it comes down to it, Cena as a legend, Jones puts up, Orton did a personal appearance for ticket sales at the Budweiser Gardens early in his career. That right there takes the cake. But regardless of the fact, Orton is my pick. So, Steven, you're on to tiebreaker mode already here.
Well, just like you said, they're two Hall of Famers for sure. It really comes down to I consider their championships equal. Comes down to really who I would want to see, and that's Randy Orton. I'm not a John Cena was the face of the company, but unfortunately he was pushed down our throats too much. They missed an opportunity to turn him heel. I'm going Randy Orton, just like Chris just said, they're right there beside each other. This is more of just a personal preference on this one because it's a coin flip. I could flip a coin, and that's actually how I originally determined this.
Yeah, I can agree with you totally on that one. My only issue with Randy Orton, and not necessarily knock, but he's been there for how long? You can't miss somebody until they go away. And I think Orton's doing his best work right now since Edge came back. He had gotten really stale, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a coin flip, and really that's actually what I did to decide this one because I could go either way. There's this bracket, this round, the South bracket has a few of those. So I have one coming up that I still haven't made a decision yet. So I'm going Orton. So Orton's going to move on 2-1.
So 2-1 victory for Orton. Moving on to the next round, which brings us to surprise.
Yes.
Kenny Omega versus Nick Bockwinkel. And, well, we're going to start off with Chris. Since
imagine that.
The biggest
say who you're voting for because we all know.
I wonder why.
Shut up. This is my time to talk. Anyways, long story short, when it comes down to it, it was actually tougher than expected because the fact is you have Omega, who loved to death, but the fact is, what does he have outside of the New Japan stuff that he did with the Bullet Club, the IWGP Heavyweight Championship? But the fact is, when you think about what he accomplished and how he accomplished it, it was against Okada as well as I do believe Tanahashi. So the fact is, when it comes down to it, Omega has that legacy, but he has that legacy for a reason. You also take in fact the fact is when you get into Omega's career, the fact is AAA Mega Championship, which he is currently the champion of. So there's a second championship not in basically Japan, but over here in North America. And then all of a sudden you haven't seen the best of what we have to get to see as far as AEW goes. But you think All Japan Pro Wrestling, which is basically New Japan's competitor, and he was basically World Junior Heavyweight Champion there. Omega, I'll tell you this, he is right now 36 years old. So it took him a while to establish his character. It took him a while to get to where he was and where he is into his 30s. But the fact is, he had a good crop of guys to work with. He had a lot of guys who were very talented to basically be able to establish him. And that's what made WWE take a look at him. And that's what made him sign with AEW. Problem is, when you grow up as a fan in the 80s in the Maritimes, AWA wrestling was all over TSN. And with saying that, there was 3 guys that were in the AWA that were champions that I took notice of. One was Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig before the Mr. Perfect moniker. One was Jerry the King Lawler. But then there was this guy that you just love to hate. And I'm talking like 10 years old, Nick Bockwinkel. I was like, who the fuck is this dick? Why does he come on TV with all the arrogance and everything in the world? Then you go on the WWE Network, you see his backstory, you see his affiliation with Bobby the Brain Heenan. He carried himself like a champion. He carried himself the same way Nick Aldis does now as NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Didn't have a lot to work with, wasn't WWE material. The fact is, he made what he had, and he made the championship into something special to compete with the likes of Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. So it was tough for me. So it's, yes, I'm going Kenny Omega for sure. But the fact is, it was tough to really think about why Kenny Omega versus Nick Bockwinkel. Because like I said, Nick Bockwinkel was the Nick Aldis, the Ric Flair of the AWA back in the day. So Steven, shit on Kenny Omega, because I'm sure Shawn's going to have to be tiebreaker here.
So Nick Bockwinkel, 4-time AWA heavyweight champion. Big Time Wrestling, 2-time heavyweight champion, which is out of Hawaii. NWA Georgia heavyweight champion 2 times for Mid-South Sports. And then there's Jazz Hands, who is also known as Kenny Omega. IWGP heavyweight champion. He IWGP junior heavyweight champion. He's match of the year 3 years in a row versus Okada and Naito. He is different from Japan to the shit we're seeing on AEW. And Chris, I want you to sit down for this, but I'm voting Kenny Omega. Based
you're doing that because
sheerly on his Japan stuff. I'm not considering the horseshit that he's doing now. But Kenny Omega, by far, in Japan, I used to love watching his matches versus Okada and Naito. I wish, and I think that's why I give them such a hard time, that's what they need to do with him in AEW instead of doing the thong matches and shit like that. So, unfortunately, Shawn, your vote doesn't count. But who are you going with?
Well, we forgot to mention, though, that Nick Bockwinkel is in the NWA Hall of Fame as of 2016 and WWE Hall of Fame in 2007. With that said, though, I was going Kenny Omega because of everything that he has done. And I figured you guys were going to vote for him anyways with the whole influence that he had with the IWGP championships.
Hey, while you've got the mic, you gotta take note of Jones's last comment about Nick Bockwinkel. Kind of made me laugh there.
Well, yes, not only a Hall of Famer, but he appeared on Hollywood Squares in 1968, where he won a Pontiac Firebird and deluxe kitchen set and $1,300 in cash. Yes. So that was almost a determining factor. That that $1,300 in the kitchen set. But now Kenny Omega is moving forward into the next round to take on Randy Orton, which takes us to our next matchup, which is JBL taking on the Macho Man Randy Savage. Steven.
So, JBL one-time WWE champion. Won some other shit that's not really that impressive. And then you got Randy Macho Man Savage. Two-time AWA Southern Heavyweight Champion. Two-time Grand Prix Wrestling Champion. ICW World Heavyweight Champion 3 times. USWA Unified World Heavyweight Champion 1 time. 4-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion. A World Wrestling Council 1-time North American Heavyweight Champion. 2-time WWF Heavyweight Champion. I'm going Macho Man because Macho Man's resume way better than JBL. JBL was not someone that I could. He was great heel, but never someone who I'd tune in for. Now, Macho Man, whether he was King Macho or when he was part of the NWO or when he did his brief run in TNA, he really made me want to watch what he was doing. So I'm going Randy Macho Man Savage.
Hey, Shawn, we know your pick, but why are you picking Savage?
Yes, it's not a secret that he's the reason why I watch wrestling. But, you're comparing everything that Randy Savage has to bring to the table against the wrestling god. Yes, he is a WWE Hall of Famer, was supposed to be inducted this year in 2020. And he had a U.S. title and IC title, hardcore title 18 times, Euro, tag team. So JBL's won everything that's available in WWE, at least while he was an active competitor. But we're talking about the Macho Man. If JBL was up against somebody else, any of the other 64 or 63 guys, he might have had a better chance, especially against somebody like a Rick Martel from last bracket. But, JBL got the short end of the stick on this random drawing, and Savage moves on for sure. Your pick?
So this would be the second 3-0 in the first round. Savage for sure. JBL, you can't. It's funny as we're doing this because I've got Impact on in the background, and they got a flashback taking place, and they've got Bully Ray taking on Devon, which I didn't know actually existed. But we talked about Bully Ray last week, and just basically the career that he had post, Team 3D, post the Dudley Boys, and JBL's the same sort of way. JBL, you never really thought of him as anything more than Justin Hawk Bradshaw, or basically Bradshaw as far as the APA goes. To completely turn around to be what people call a Ted DiBiase ripoff. The fact is he made a career out of it, but the fact is, he's up against Macho Man Randy Savage.
J.R. Ewing.
You can't. There's certain names in this business, in the world of wrestling, especially as world champions go, that you can't compete with, and Savage is one of them. It's amazing the names that we've got in this bracket tonight, because there are 2 other names for sure that are almost untouchable. So we'll have to see where the bracket goes. But Savage 3-0. It's JBL against somebody else. Maybe he would have had a shot, but Savage, it's 3-0. The Macho Man moves on.
JBL was a inductee to the Hall of Fame this year, had they had it. And as Jones is pointing out, he was the 20th WWE Triple Crown winner and 10th Grand Slam winner. So he has gold to account for, and he did carry the SmackDown brand for a while. And Eddie Guerrero was a huge factor in it, but bad luck of the draw, JBL.
You missed out. He also had a bitch and clothesline.
Yes, a bitch and clothesline. And he used to brand opponents after he won, thanks to Uncle Zebekiah having his branding iron with him. This moves us on to really our fourth match of the contest.
See
And
another 3-0 happening right here.
That has the Great Khali.
Can we save the facts about Samoa Joe for the next round? Why waste them?
Sure. Great Khali taking on Samoa Joe. There's a lot of facts for Joe compared to just one little footnote for Khali. So basically with Khali, he actually did make the top 100 in the PWI 500 at number 83 in 2008. But he's only a one-time WWE champion. And yeah, I think he just lucked into that due to circumstances of people being injured. So he's taking on Samoa Joe. Yeah. Samoa frickin' Joe. Khali. Joe wins. And we go on to Chris to give your opinion on Samoa Joe and Khali.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with Steven. We'll get facts in maybe second round here. Definitely Joe. So Joe advances. Steven, not sure. I can't see you going with Khali. The cool thing is Jones being the stats master tonight. The fact is, some of the stuff that he had mentioned. First, Indian WWE champion, which is kind of cool. Second one would have been, I guess. What the hell's his name?
Jinder Mahal?
Thank you. Yes,
Oh,
I kept thinking modern day Maharaja, but cool thing was about Khali as well. He was a former police officer in Punjab. Absolutely amazing to think some 7-footer cop coming after you. Man, I just be like, okay, done, But the transition, Khali was cool because of the character, the gimmick, and everything else. But believable world champ. I think there was a match. What was it with him and Batista in that steel cage, whatever they call it, the Punjabi Nightmare match?
Yeah, it was supposed to be somebody else. I think Taker was supposed to be in it with him.
Yeah, but whatever the case, I mean, I love the gimmick, and the guy was, I love seeing him on TV just because he was, huge as fuck. But the fact is, Samoa Joe, yeah, no contest. It's pretty sure it's going to be a 3-0 in this one.
He started in the movie with Adam Sandler.
It's 3-0 because, well, fuck. But Samoa Joe or Great Khali, if he was in the 80s with Hogan, imagine the star Khali would have been, because we all know Hogan would have had him. But Jinder Mahal was Canadian, or half Canadian at least. So
from Alberta.
Yeah. So we're going 3-0. We'll save the facts because I'm not going to waste all my good facts on that waste of time.
And that moves us on to Chris. You get to start us off with the ever so popular by Chris Jones, Orville Brown, taking on the Nature Boy, Ric Flair.
Oops, actually muted the mic on that one. So as people can't see in the background right here, Jones is actually applauding as you're saying the name Orville Brown. So I give you this. Ric Flair taking on Orville Brown. Fact is, I'm going to go with Orville Brown simply because of the fact I didn't realize stats until tonight. But the fact is, NWA World Heavyweight Champion, the first in 1948, and his professional wrestling career ended in 1949. So, again, like I was saying before we started the show tonight, kind of like a Magnum TA type thing. Who would have known what he would have accomplished? He could have been a Lou Thez. He could have been a Buddy Rogers. The fact is, who knows? But the fact is, and I promised somebody I'd vote Orville, so I am voting Orville because I know I'm going to get outranked. I know I'm going to get outvoted. I know Nature Boy's going on to the second round, but my official pick, as far as this show goes, to anybody listening on YouTube or anywhere else right now, Orville Brown is my pick. Go ahead, Steven.
So we have a 16-time world champion, 6-time WCW World Heavyweight Champion, 2-time WCW International World Heavyweight Champion, multiple NWA, WCW, Mid-Atlantic. He was the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion 3 times. WCW United States Champion 6 times. He was the first WCW Triple Crown winner. He's a 9-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Then we'll go to WWE because that doesn't even include the NWA Missouri Heavyweight Championship he won. He's 2-time WWF World Heavyweight Champion, 13th Triple Crown winner, 2-time WWE Hall of Famer, which doesn't really count because I don't consider that. But I'm voting Ric Flair because if you think a world champion, one of the first names that popped your head is Ric Flair. Now you have to break the tie, Shawn.
Well, Chris is saying
I know.
that must be better than Khali because he didn't bother with stats. But we did talk about Orville's stats through Chris Maloney with his 20-year career and inaugural NWA Heavyweight Championship, which he won once. He had a lot of great competitors to go against, as Jonesy's pointing out, Ed Strangler Lewis, and 20-year career cut short due to a car accident. But it's Ric Flair. And I might not have been a fan of his prior to him coming to WWE, but a lot of things determine on where you grew up and where you watch wrestling. Somebody in the South would love Ric Flair compared to Hulk Hogan. I wasn't a Hogan fan either, so there's a little bit of a difference. But, when Flair came, I could see what the big deal was with him, and I did see the Flair Steamboat feud that happened before he came to WWE. But yeah, we're looking at feud of the year with the Horsemen and the Superpowers in '87. That was the start of all the War Games that happened. He had feud of the year with Luger, which anybody can wrestle Luger, in '88 and '90. Feud of the year with Funk in '89. Inspirational Wrestler of the Year in 2008. Matches of the year in '83, 4, 6, 89, 2009, and 2008, which included people like Harley Race, Kerry Von Erich, Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, and Shawn Michaels. 2-time inductee into the Hall of Fame as himself and the Horsemen. How could you not have Ric Flair advance? So Orville could have advanced against somebody else, but bad luck of the draw in this. It could have been closer if we had Orville versus JBL, but that didn't happen. And so, yeah, Ric Flair advances 2-1, and we move on to our next matchup, which is Lou Thesz versus Hulk Hogan. And that is Steven.
So Lou Thesz, 1-time AWA Heavyweight Champion in Boston, AW World Heavyweight Champion in the Indiana, Ohio, Colorado, because 2 different territories. International Wrestling Heavyweight Champion, Japan Wrestling Association, NWA International Heavyweight Champion 1 time. He won a World Heavyweight Champion in Great Britain. He won a Heavyweight Championship in Ohio. 4-time Montreal Heavyweight Champion. 3-time NWA. 3-time. Yeah, they just keep going and going and going. Then there's Hulk Hogan. He's an IWGP Heavyweight Champion, the original version. IWGP League Tournament. He is a WWF, WWE Undisputed Heavyweight Champion 6 times. He is multi-WWE Hall of Fame. He's a 6-time WCW Heavyweight Champion, which I didn't realize it was that many.
Finger poke of doom.
True. I'm going Hulk Hogan based on, if I think greatest world champions, it's Hulk Hogan. Luthez isn't in my top 5, so I'm going Hulk Hogan. That also is my mark in me.
And I will say, as a non-Hulkamaniac, that Hogan is advancing for myself. Luthez has tons of things on his resume, and I'm never going to take that away from him. As Jonesy was talking about us earlier, before we started recording, he invented a lot of different moves. Not many people have a move named after them, and at least a good one that's used a lot, because even Trish Stratus and Steve Austin used the Luthez press. Now, I'm not calling the Meltzer driver a good move, but Luthez has at least one move named after him, and he invented so many others. As Jonesy's pointing out, 2-time AWA champion, 3-time NWA, and a 10-year total reign. Things being equal, if he'd been in this generation, it would have been an amazing champion as well. I think just two different types of generations we're talking about. Hogan, unfortunately, lack of skills compared to Luthez for sure, but his impact on the wrestling business, bringing WWE to fruition in the rock and wrestling era, and then bringing WCW to profitability in '96 when people were starting to turn on him again because he was getting stale in WWE, and that's why one of the reasons why also with movies that he left. But he got brought into WCW thinking that, oh, here's somebody that can revive things and turn a profit. They still were not turning any profits in '95. It wasn't until Hall and Nash got there and he turned heel that things started taking off for WCW, and they had their climb, which unfortunately was short-lived in their case. But the best impact in the business has to go to Hulk Hogan. Chris?
So I'll tell you this. It's not a 3-0. It's a 2-1. So this was one of the ones on my bracket that unfortunately I wasn't able to pick and choose from. So with Hulk Hogan, you got Hulkamania, you get everything that he accomplished for the business, the industry. Without him, WWE would not exist. I tell you that much. But when you go and you look at Luthez, and the first thing you see on Wikipedia, for example, is 22 world championships. The more you go through it, all of a sudden you see debut in 1932, retired in 1990. So that span of a 68-year career, or 58-year career, sorry, is absolutely amazing. You think about the fact that he's got a Hall of Fame named after him. The Tragos Thez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. And then when you go back into detail as far as, like I said, Wikipedia goes, you see that he was trained by Ed Lewis, George Tragos, who's part of that Hall of Fame with, like I said, Ray Steele and Warren Bockwinkel. There's a name. So the fact is, you can't take away from Hulkamania, but when you think about this tournament and the greatest world champions, 22 world champions, or 22 world championships. And the fact is, it's not a Jerry the King Lawler type thing where all of a sudden he was booking himself. You know what I mean? He was just that popular, just that powerful. And when it comes down to it, and you think about, and you guys had already mentioned about his move and Shawn's got a fucking smirk on his face, so I'm curious. But you think about the fact is he has a move named after him. I'm sitting here and we're doing this show, and I've got Impact Wrestling on the background right now because we are recording on Tuesday. And sure enough, who performs the Thez press is Alicia Edwards against the virtuosa Diana Perrazzo. So the move is still relevant as we're recording this show because I just watched the move take place. You know what I mean? Trish Stratus was famous for it, but the fact is when it comes down to it, Hulk Hogan, yes, I agree. The fact is he is moving on, but the fact is in this case, I would have went Luthez. Next round's going to be difficult because you've got that famous matchup between Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan, NWA versus WWF. So it'll be interesting to see where we go with that one. But Thez was officially my pick.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough call because Luthez has so much to offer. But yeah, just legacy-wise, that's why I think both Steven and I went with it. So that brings us to Daniel Bryan versus Shinsuke Nakamura. And I get to start that one.
I got a quick question with this one. Is it only Daniel Bryan, or are we including Daniel or Bryan Danielson?
Brian Danielson as well.
Okay, that just want to confirm.
The human,
Just
regardless of how he is called. So I think you're asking because of the fact that he was New Japan Junior Heavyweight champion one time, Best of Super Juniors winner in 2004. Then over in ROH, he was one-time pure champion and one-time world champion. Headed over to WWE, four-time WWE champion, one-time world champion, IC and US champion. A couple tag team titles, especially with Kane. So he's a multi-time Grand Slam winner. I think he's in the Grand Slam, definitely that realm. PWI-wise, he had comeback of the year in 2018. His career could have been over. By all accounts, should have been over, but the right people diagnosed and he had enough time off that he healed up. So he got to come back, huge comeback in 2018, voted by the fans. Feud of the year was 2013 against the Authority, and we all saw how that culminated at WrestleMania with the double titles at the Superdome and the celebration that happened there. Inspirational Wrestler of the Year, Match of the Year against John Cena in 2013, most popular in 2013, Wrestler of the Year in 2013. So that was a huge year for him, and number one wrestler in PWI 500 in 2014. You go over to the other side, and yes, people won't really know about Nakamura's skills to their greatest extent because of what we've seen in WWE. He has had a great run in NXT and half decent so far on the main roster, but it got shot down, especially in some of those matches with AJ Styles. But people wouldn't realize that he's IWGP third champion, one-time, three-time IWGP champion, a five-time IWGP Intercontinental champion. He held the NXT title twice. He's a one-time IC and two-time U.S. champion in WWE. Most popular in 2016, and he reached number 5 in the PWI 500 in 2015. These guys can put on amazing matches when they're going against each other, but depending on what you're looking at for judging how people advance. In my case, I'm judging on resume and impact, and Daniel Bryan had a huge movement, especially with going from basically not having really anything going on for him at WrestleMania to having 2 matches and winning the titles, and the huge movement that people had to get him in that position. That's a large impact on the business. And so Daniel Bryan is getting my vote to move past Shinsuke Nakamura. Maloney?
So this was tough because the fact is I am marks for both of these guys. I can go into my closet right now and find T-shirts for both of these guys. The fact is, when I think of Shinsuke Nakamura, I loved his gimmick when he came to WWE, the theme music, everything about him. You know what I mean? The fact is, when he beat, I think it was Sami Zayn for that first NXT championship, and then Sami had given his swan song to say, "See you later, NXT Universe." But the fact is, that doesn't even cut close to the career that he had over in New Japan. He was the reason Kenny Omega won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in the first place. Or sorry, not at the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, but it was the IC, maybe? I think I'm getting my facts confused, but I think he had vacated the title. I think, I'm not sure if it was due to injury or because of the fact he'd come over to North America. But when he came over to North America, I do remember this. It was a huge signing. It was a huge thing that WWE. WWE.com had announced it as like Shinsuke Nakamura is coming over, It wasn't the type of thing where it was a Kenta type thing where they didn't do anything with the guy and he kept getting injured. The fact is, Shinsuke, in my opinion, has been misused by the WWE, not necessarily by NXT, but misused by the WWE. You talk about Undertaker and AJ Styles and the match that they had, and the fact is, when you watch that series, and the fact is, Undertaker goes into his last match against AJ Styles because he's trusted. Here you got AJ Styles in a main event at WrestleMania taking on Shinsuke, and they low blow each other to end match. I think it was one of the biggest bullshit moments I've probably ever seen in my life. But if the WWE had to use this guy properly, he would be up there with Daniel Bryan. He'd be up there with AJ Styles, but they haven't used him properly. And because of that, it's tough to go against a guy like Daniel Bryan, because the fact is, here's a guy who was ROH. And like I said, marks for both of these guys. He was a guy who was pure champion, who was ROH world champion. And the fact is, they knew how to book him properly. He was the American Dragon Bryan Danielson. It wasn't just Daniel Bryan. And the fact is, when WWE took over him, he was being misused as well. You think of his fuse with The Miz. You think of his the way that they were basically jobbing him out to Sheamus at WrestleMania for the world title and this and that. And then all of a sudden the fans got behind him, and you can never, ever take away that WrestleMania 30 moment. A lot of fans will be like, okay, Undertaker lost for the very first time, but to me, Daniel Bryan winning that title against Triple H and Randy Orton and Batista, that to me was legacy. That was legit. That was, here's the fans building this guy up. And when Daniel Bryan won that title, it meant something, and the fans went nuts. And the way he carried himself as champion, even though they put him, I think, with a feud with Kane, the fact is, ROH, WWE, you can't take away that legacy. You can't take away the build that he had. And the fact is, who carried themselves better as world champion? When Shinsuke was part of New Japan, there was no hype. I wasn't a fan of New Japan back then. And, when all of a sudden I discovered guys like Tanahashi and Okada and Naito and stuff like that, is what kind of made me a fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Shinsuke never did that. So even though he was IWGP heavyweight champion, fact is, he never made me a fan of New Japan. So fact is, when it comes down to it, Daniel Bryan for the win for this one. I got to go with that. I think, Shawn, you had gone Daniel Bryan as well. Yeah. So Steven, your vote.
It's a sweep.
Well, that's why I had to ask. I had to clarify. Because if you would have said ROH doesn't count, it'd be 2-1. But I was a huge ROH fan. Him versus Mojo, him versus Nigel B. Guinness, him versus CM Punk, him versus a lot of guys. I'm going Daniel Bryan. And it honestly came down to the ROH thing put it over the top for me. Don't get me wrong. I love Shinsuke. Love what he did in Japan. I love what he did in NXT. But like Chris said, he's grossly underutilized in the main roster. He should be a multi-time world champion, heavyweight world champion. He's got the skills, the matches that him and AJ, the guys that he could be wrestling, and he's not, which breaks my heart. But yes, this is a 3-0 sweep because I'm going Daniel Bryan.
I'm surprised you said that the Ring of Honor resume helped put Daniel Bryan over the top for you, and it wasn't the fact that his dad is his stepfather is John Laurinaitis, or as I like to call him, John Laryngitis. Vince, you really look buff today. So yeah, Johnny Ace is Daniel Bryan's father-in-law. Who would have ever figured that would have connected to each other? But that's what's happening in real life. Daniel Bryan's, though, moving on 3-0. And that brings us to Antonio Inoki against Christian. And, Chris. Hi, welcome back. You get to start this one. Antonio Inoki versus Christian.
You can only hold beverages for so long, I'll tell you that much.
That's okay.
So
this is already an hour almost into it. So
all right. So as far as official vote tally goes, and I'll see this once I go back and edit this, but Steven, who did you vote for as far as Nakamura and Bryan goes?
Bryan.
All right, so 3-0 there. All right, so Inoki versus Christian Cage. Christian Cage, I'll tell you this, never was really established as world champion as far as WWE goes. I think he was a world champion a couple times, maybe once or twice. ECW world champion as far as the new regime went, but then you got Antonio Inoki. So as a fan of Japan wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, it's the same thing as putting Orville Brown up against Ric Flair. To me, it's Inoki versus Christian Cage. and I think he was NWA World Champion twice. But the fact is, you got Antonio Inoki, so it's a legend versus a guy who basically barely probably got into this tournament. So, you could have replaced him with pretty much anybody. So I got to go Inoki for the win for this one. I'd love to see Hogan versus Inoki, but we have to wait and see if Hogan gets by Flair. So Inoki's my vote. Steven, who are you with?
Well, one guy should be in this tournament and one guy shouldn't be. Antonio Inoki. Oh, let's see. He won one-time IWGP Heavyweight Champion, two-time IWGP Original Version Heavyweight Champion, WWF World Martial Arts Heavyweight Champion 2 times, which I had no idea, NJPW Real World Champ, no idea. I'm confused by some of this. NWA Texas World Heavyweight Champ. He also won, which I didn't know. He's a one-time WWF Heavyweight Champion, and it says unofficial. So, but I'm going Inoki because one guy should be in this tournament, one guy shouldn't be.
Well, it is going to be a 3-0 sweep. I did pick Christian because, hey, he was a TNA NWA champion. He brought Captain Charisma here to London when TNA was doing a show here. He finally did break that sort of glass ceiling that he was experiencing, not being able to get past Edge, sort of being the Marty Jannetty of the group, but more successful than Marty Jannetty. But after Edge retired, he got the ECW championship. He had the world title with Randy Orton multiple times in a great series of matches that they did. And that's why I picked Christian to be in here. But he's a victim of the draw, just like a couple other people were, of not being able to get it out of the first round. And so, yeah, I'm going Antonio Inoki in a 3-0 sweep because you can't deny everything that Inoki has meant to the sport of professional wrestling and culturally in Japan. So he has basically the total package of what is looked upon for being a champion. So there we go. The first round is done. We'll bring in Chris. Steven had to step away for a moment. And Jonesy, what are your thoughts on the first round and any surprises?
Well, it's too bad Brown didn't make it through, but I do understand. The JBL one, I flip-flopped between the two of them before I decided on Savage because, JBL as a wrestler isn't very good, but the fact that he was in these tag teams in mid-card for so long, and then he got an opportunity and he made it, and his clothesline from hell, I'm sorry, he'd rip off Randy Savage's head with one clothesline. So, I mean, I know it's supposed to be on paper, but moves to me are a part of your resume. So I think JBL in an actual match, Savage just wouldn't have a chance. But that's me. With the others, you know what? You said that Xena has lost his chance to kind of turn heel, and I don't think that's true. Unfortunately, they probably won't do it, but if WWE wants another kind of boost, as far as a lot of things, as far as ratings and sales, if Xena came in and was the same character he's always been, but amped that up annoyance of Xena knows best kind of attitude and like just shoved that in everyone's face, to me, he could be a bad guy that way. And then, like, it almost happened when he had that feud with Bray Wyatt, and it pissed me off. WWE didn't continue with making Cena a bad guy. I think he'd make a great bad guy, but as a nice guy. They so the Khali, you know what? Khali, he was originally going to be picked up by WCW, which meant that he could have been. And do you think that if he had the chance to be in WCW, that he would have done a better job at being the Yeti? I do. I think he would have been a better Yeti. I don't think he would have dry humped anyone.
Better than Ron Reese?
Yes. And Nakamura, you know what? For me, when I seen him in New Japan, that was one thing that made me like New Japan even more, because his entrance, how he delivers his moves after his main moves, he just drips a different breed of performer. It's not just wrestling. It's he creates an aura and uses the music very well. Nakamura, to me, I think has the best entrance of anyone I've ever seen. I'd love to see it live and see if it gives me goosebumps. But and at the end, Christian Cage is the Marty Jannetty version 2.0. So.
But more successful. Because
absolutely more successful.
Jannetty did not win any world titles, and his latest claim to fame is wondering if a girl is legal age or not. So
to me, Christian Cage is very similar to Jeff Jarrett, where I don't believe Jeff Jarrett as a world champion in a big company, but in a smaller company, I think he's the guy. And same thing with Cage. It's just not big enough and doesn't, I don't know, there's something that isn't there to make you a good world champion, believable, with all these big guys around you. And that's my 2 thoughts.
No worries. Thank you. So if we look at the brackets, Maloney has them up. Yeah, in the second round, we're going to see Randy Orton against Kenny Omega. Randy Savage taking on Samoa Joe. The battle of WCW versus WWE or WWF, Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan, and Daniel Bryan taking on Antonio Inoki. So anything you're looking forward to, Jones, before we get back into this?
I'll just say that I think for this, it would be, for me, Orton, Savage, Flair, and flip a coin on that one. But I had Antonio Inoki, but I still kind of, anyway.
Well, we'll see what happens. So thanks for your thoughts on that, Jonesy. Steven, Chris, any thoughts on the second round before we dive in? Or the results of the first round?
Results of the first round, I tell you this, some of them were tough, but this second round is a hell of a lot tougher than that first round. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, when a couple 3-0s happen, it's a little bit easier, but I don't know if we'll go 3-0s on this round.
I don't expect a 3-0 in this round at all.
So we're going to dive in, and we start with Steven with Randy Orton against Kenny Omega. Bum, bum, bum.
I'm torn on this one. Don't smile, Chris. Fucking asshole. Like I said, I liked Kenny Omega in Japan. However, my coin flip is going to go Orton. surely because Kenny Omega's in AEW. That's what it comes down to. I could flip a coin, and I'm just going to lean Orton because I can't stand Jazz Hands right now. So, Shawn?
I did not have Orton going into the next round when I did my brackets earlier. So looking at what's going on with this one between these two, I honestly have to go with Kenny Omega just because of his match quality over in Japan. Not saying his match quality in North America because it's kind of tarnishing what his reputation was over there. But I got bored with Randy Orton. He just wouldn't go away, and he became vanilla and boring until just recently with the reemergence of Edge. And so he's been at the top of his game. But looking at both of them, I do have to honestly go with Kenny Omega just because of the match quality that he was putting on over in Japan compared to Orton.
All right, so you've got basically Kenny Omega New Japan versus Kenny Omega AEW, which is it used to be a saying in wrestling called prime rib versus $2 steak or whatever the case. Bobby the Brain Heenan used to say. But the fact is, when it comes down to it, it's tough because the fact is you've got somebody like Randy Orton and the legacy that he has, but it's one company, and it's always been one company. And he's always been booked by that same one company. When you have a guy like Kenny Omega, who came in as basically a Bullet Club reject, basically made his name as the cleaner, ended up winning the IWGP World Junior Heavyweight Championship, became a staple in the Bullet Club because AJ Styles wanted to take off. To me, that is enough to put him over Randy Orton. You add the fact he was IWGP Heavyweight Champion, plus the fact that he is versatile, which means he can have a great match pretty much with anybody. Okada, Tanahashi, Chris Jericho. He could probably put Great Khali in a good match. The fact is, Randy the puzzle looks going on right now. But the fact is,
Khali is not a blow-up doll.
But the fact is, Orton, as great as he is, the legacy that he has, the family name that he has, even put him in a real life match with Kenny Omega, and Omega's going to run circles around him. The same way AJ Styles would run circles around him. When I think of wrestlers as probably a group of top 5 guys that are in that field, as far as me personally goes, Omega, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio, and the fifth is probably to be determined because I'd have to really think about it. But the fact is, Omega is part of that group that can put on a great match with everybody. And the fact is, when he was IWGP Heavyweight Champion, yes, he was one of the greatest in the world. Hence the fact, PWI #1. As far as his AEW shit goes, I can't fucking stand him in AEW, and I will say that on this show. But as a fan of Kenny Omega, rocking his T-shirt right now, yes, I will always be an Omega fan, but I hate the fact of what AEW is doing with him right now. They could do so much more. He could basically put ratings over 1 million people a week as far as AEW goes if they gave him that chance, but he's taking a step back right now, and he is 36. So fact is, Omega, Orton, Omega advances. So yeah, that was it was tough, but it was kind of easy all at the same time.
Okay, so a 2-1 vote on that one, which brings me to Randy Macho Man Savage versus Samoa Joe.
Can we first give you some facts on Samoa Joe before you?
How about you say why Samoa Joe is not going to win? We know where you're going. The same way I just put over Omega, you're going to put over Savage. So,
well, it is a tough call. Yeah, to be honest.
That's about as tough as Chris picking Orton over Omega.
Wrong way. Fucking Pinocchio over here.
Yeah, I know. You've got Samoa Joe, is the longest reigning ROH heavyweight champion, 645 days consecutive.
He has a great resume. I'm not.
Okay, can you just pick Savage so we can talk about Samoa Joe's?
Carry on, then. There's a vote for Savage. Maloney.
Well, that's it. No rhyme or reason, just Savage.
Well, Steven's saying just get on with it, so I'll give my vote to Savage without propping up Joe, because you guys can prop up Joe and decide if he's advancing or if Savage is.
So I will tell you this, as a fan of wrestling today, as a fan of wrestling, when I really started heavily getting into it probably about 15 years ago, the fact is I was an Impact Wrestling fan. I have been an Impact Wrestling fan way back to the days where I had to basically go and find and download the weekly pay-per-views onto my computer to be able to watch them. That's when I discovered Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Chris Sabin, Samoa Joe. And all of a sudden they went live, I think, on, what was it? It wasn't TNT, but the other one, Spike TV. And then there was Spike, and there was another name for it as well.
Before that was Fox.
For Impact? Did you say for Impact? Fox?
Yeah, they had an explosion show on Fox.
When they first got their TV deal, they were like on FS1.
Yeah, but what did Spike turn? Oh, it was TNN. And then TNN turned into Spike.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the way it was. But anyways, it was new, it was fresh. Some of the matches that they had put on were interesting. The 6-sided ring, of course. The X division was, basically Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. And all of a sudden, when Kurt Angle came into Impact Wrestling, they established Joe as even more of a heel, even more of a character. If Joe was against anybody else in this tournament, I will say this, even if he was against Omega, it would be a tough call. But when it comes down to it, it's Randy the Macho fucking Man Savage and everything that he has accomplished as far as his career went. And the fact is, when it comes down to it, Savage, to me, when I was that age, won the WrestleMania 4 tournament. And all of a sudden, that was like, holy shit, Hogan actually got beat. Andre got beat. DiBiase got beat. And Savage ends up winning this thing. He carried the belt for a year until he lost it to Hogan, but he carried himself like a champion. Then all of a sudden he was passe. Vince McMahon's like your commentator. He went over to WCW and established himself again as a champion. And all of a sudden the next thing you know, he ends up in that gimmick with Medusa and Gorgeous George. And I think Psycho Sid was part of that as well. And the whole NWO thing that he had done. And the legacy that he had, when you think of when he won that championship in 1988, all the way through to the end of 1999, he was still the Macho Man. No matter what, like I said, Vince McMahon has said, you're past it, you're going to be a commentator. But the fact is, he reestablished himself. Where Samoa Joe, fact is, he went to NXT, and the buck stopped there. For whatever reason, he's had the ability to have these feuds to become a world champion as far as WWE goes. But the fact is, it's never happened. And it's unfortunate because he could have went and became so much more, much the same as Kevin Owens, much the same as Shinsuke Nakamura. I don't know if it's a Triple H thing or a Vince McMahon thing, but the fact is, Savage basically said F you to Vince McMahon and reestablished himself, and that's the career Macho Man had. So, Shawn, you get your win here. So, but it'll be very interesting next round because we know who's facing each other. So, but Savage gets a win right here.
Steven's vote.
Well, no, okay. Well, Savage 2-0, but Steven, I kind of am curious where you're going to go with this.
So, Samoa Joe, ROH heavyweight champion, 645 days, still the longest reigning world heavyweight champion in ROH. He was an ROH pure heavyweight champion. He was 2000 Rookie of the Year. He's an NWA World Heavyweight Champion, X Division Champion 5 times. He's a 2-time NXT World Champion. My vote was going Samoa Joe. The 645 days being ROH champion, wrestling guys like the American Dragon, CM Punk, Chris Hero, you name it.
Rock.
Yeah, that was towards the end. Tyler, by far, he put on. ROH at that time made me want to watch wrestling again.
You think of the guys back there, like even just CM Punk alone when Joe was back there.
Well, you watch our matches of Daniel Bryan,
Nigel McGuinness as well,
Yeah, you like the guys that he fought made me want to watch wrestling again. My vote would have been Samoa Joe, Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Macho Man fan, but the 645 days straight was very impressive to me. That's why I put Joe in this tournament, but Omega Savage, that will be a fun one between the two of you.
You're probably gonna have to be the tiebreaker.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Steven's going to be the only vote in that one.
Yeah, that's going to be the fun one. I want you both to make your cases.
Which brings us to Chris, starting off with the battle of the 80s. Hogan versus Flair. North versus South. NWA versus WWF. Who's going?
So you think about it this way: I was a mark for WWF. It's just the way I grew up. It's what I saw on TV. Ric Flair was basically an arrogant jackass. I saw him on TV and I hated the guy, but he did his job. You think of the legacy between the two guys. You think, like I said, Hulk Hogan. There would be no WWE, WWF without Hulk Hogan. He basically saved the company, put it on his back, and basically in saying that, you cannot go against the career and the longevity of Ric Flair. Hogan established himself in the 80s, kept himself going in the 90s, and then that was it. As far as Ric Flair goes, you think 70s, 80s, 90s, even the 2000s. The matches he put on with Edge, the Evolution thing that he had done, with Batista and Triple H and Randy Orton, even to friggin' showing up on Monday Night Raw the past 2 weeks, but he's still relevant. Hogan, the problem is with him, I think there was too much politics involved. With Ric Flair, the fact is, when the going got tough, he made a decision. He was like, okay, I'm going to jump ship. But he was always loyal to WCW, the NWA, right down to the final version of Nitro. You know what I mean? He made guys like Sting. He made guys like Lex Luger. He was one of the powerhouses attempting to feud with the NWO back in the day, but 16-time world heavyweight champion. And the fact is, when it comes down to it, they won't allow anybody in wrestling to break that record. John Cena's got 16 championships, and they won't allow him to break that record. Randy Orton has halted, I think, at 13. Triple H, I think, is up there as well. But the buck stops at Ric Flair for the amount of respect that they have for the guy. And he's another one of those guys who can make anybody look good in the match. And you think of the names that I've mentioned, but you think of the feuds that he had with, say, a Ricky Steamboat. You know what I mean? The fact is, you can't – Hogan versus Flair, when it comes right down to it, as far as wrestling goes or wrestling ability goes and the way you've carried that championship, Hogan saved WWE. But the fact is, Ric Flair has been there throughout the past 50 years or whatever the case may be. So it is a tough call, but the fact is, when I think of wrestling, back in the day, I would have chose Hulk Hogan over Ric Flair easily. But the fact is, the more experience and the older I get, Ric Flair all the way. So Flair's got my vote.
Steven.
So just like Hogan made the WWE, Ric Flair saved WCW. At the time, it was NWA Mid-South. The only reason why Ted Turner bought that then NWA or Jim Crockett Promotion was because he remembered Ric Flair. He's a 16-time world heavyweight champion. Hulk Hogan, don't get me wrong. I was a Hulkamaniac as a kid. Hated him when he turned and went to the NWO and WCW. But I'm going Ric Flair.
And that makes three of us.
Wow.
Because as much as Hulk Hogan was a motivating factor of sparking the wrestling world in the 80s and into the 90s and then resurging it with the NWO, you look at what he actually did. A lot of things were manufactured through Vince and the power of media. But when you went to actual shows and stuff like that, yeah, Hogan might have gotten Match of the Year with Ultimate Warrior at WrestleMania 6. But a lot of times people were carrying Hogan through to make him look good. He had a monster factory bumping for him to put him over with his 5 moves of doom. That you hear Cena having 5 moves of doom. Hogan had about the same, and he would not be on house shows that often. And when he was on house shows, he was doing the match before the intermission, which would set up you trying to buy tickets for the next show. But it'd be guys in the Intercontinental title level that were main eventing those shows that Hogan was on. Of course, everybody wanted to be on the Hogan show because it meant more money, but that was because of his fame and popularity. You go over to the other side, and you got Ric Flair, who was putting on hour-long Broadway matches and keeping people involved the whole time. They weren't getting up and going to the washroom. They wanted to see what happened. Whether he was going hours long with Ricky Steamboat in their trilogy that they had, or going against Terry Funk, Dusty Rhodes, or Harley Race, Ric Flair was the guy who you wanted to see. And also, he was part of the NWA at the time, and that was all the different organizations in the territories saying, he is our guy who will go around to everybody. He was voted that position, not just one man like Vince McMahon saying, here's the belt, Terry, and you're carrying the company. Ric Flair was chosen by multiple companies to represent them. So that's why, even though was not a fan of Rick because I didn't see the NWA as much as I obviously saw WWF, but Ric Flair earns his stripes and 16-time world champ and everything. He's moving on to the next round. Which brings us to Daniel Bryan against Antonio Inoki, and that is Steven.
Well, I'm going Daniel Bryan, or the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. Sheer fact that I have seen so many of his matches in ROH, WWE. Don't get me wrong, both great wrestlers and great champions, but the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, or Daniel Bryan, just makes me... The matches he had with Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Nigel McGuinness, Tyler Black, Kevin Steen, El Generico, just match quality. I'm going Daniel Bryan.
And I'm going to second that with vote for Daniel Bryan because, we talked about how things went for WrestleMania 30, and before that card got put together, who was really excited for it? Like, there was a lot of rumored matches. If CM Punk had not have walked out, probably Daniel Bryan wouldn't have been in the position that he was in, because I think he was going to end up getting Triple H after CM Punk walked. But everybody wanted Daniel Bryan to win that Royal Rumble to go to WrestleMania. I was at that Royal Rumble, and just the heartbreak that was there when Daniel Bryan lost to Bray Wyatt in the opening match and did not come out for the Royal Rumble as people expected, and totally shit on Dave Bautista for winning. Of course, that would have been their opportunity to pull the trigger on Roman Reigns, because that's when people wanted to actually back him. But without Daniel Bryan in there, people crapped on the rest of the match. Rey Mysterio even got booed coming out at number 30 that day. And it was all the resurgence of the fans wanting to back Daniel Bryan and get him into that main event. And then you go back in time, and he's all the great matches they had in ROH you just described, Steven. And he's one of Shawn Michaels' first group of students, or only group of students, along with Spanky and Lance Cade he's got quite the career going for him, and to be able to also come back like he did from injury, Daniel Bryan. Chris?
So I think the semifinal is going to be fucking tougher than shit. I tell you this much. So I will say this: I'm going to go Daniel Bryan. And reason for is because the fact is he established more with the companies he was with than Inoki. Inoki was complete New Japan, but again, in the sense you put him up against Daniel Bryan, and I have to put in the factor as this is the fact is he booked himself like Jerry the King Lawler would have. You know what I mean? So he was that territory. He was that promotion. Just to elaborate on two separate thoughts before we bring in Jonesy here. Shawn had mentioned WrestleMania 30 in the original card, so I've got it here in front of me. So it would have looked like this, and this is 7 matches that would have taken place if Punk wouldn't have walked out. So Roman Reigns versus Dean Ambrose for the United States Championship. Big Show versus Kane. Third match up was Daniel Bryan taking on Sheamus. John Cena versus Bray Wyatt with the Wyatt family. Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar was on as planned. CM Punk taking on Triple H, and then Batista taking on Randy Orton in the WWE World Heavyweight Championship match is what was planned. So again, because of what happened at the Royal Rumble and the lack of fan support that Batista had, they had to make the changes, and then CM Punk walking out obviously made the difference as well. With regards to
3 years in a row of Sheamus and Daniel Bryan.
Yeah. So with regards to Inoki, I'll tell you this. With regards to IWGP Heavyweight Championship, there are 2 versions, and this is why. So Hogan defeated Antonio Inoki via knockout in the first IWGP League 1983 final, becoming the first champion. So Hulk Hogan on June 2nd, 1983, became the first champion. His reign was 378 days, but the fact is, the title wasn't defended as often. So Antonio Inoki was champ number 2. Vacated in 1990 or 1986, became champion again a month later in 86, and then the championship was deactivated in 1987, where basically the winner of the IWGP League in 1987 became what is known now as the IWGP champion. As far as what Steven was talking about, so WWF champion, he did win it November 30th, 1979. Title was vacated on December 6th, 1979. So he ended up beating Bob Backlund for that championship in 1979 in Tokyo, Japan. What it has as the note, as far as Wikipedia goes, is Inoki immediately vacated the title after a title defense rematch with Bob Backlund and in no contest due to the interference of New Japan Pro Wrestling's Tiger Jeet Singh. So because there was interference, Inoki didn't, want the title the way he wanted, and that was the end of that. So it is an unrecognized title reign as WWF champion by Antonio Inoki, but he is New Japan Pro Wrestling through and through. But the fact is, when you think of world champions and what the championship meant to that guy, Daniel Bryan for sure. So yeah, 3-0. So Shawn, if you just want to get into a little bit of details, highlights, I'm going to bring back Jonesy here, who looks like he's back online here.
Yep, let's bring in Chris. I was actually surprised that there wasn't, or that there was some 3-0s when we were about to start that round. It looked like it was going to be a lot tougher, but some surprise 3-0s in there. The first half of it was difficult, and it's going to be even more difficult coming into this. But we'll get to that in a moment. Jonesy, what were your thoughts on how things shook out in the second round?
Well, with Inoki, you know what? Personally, I'd pick him for the fact that 10, 20 years from now, people are still going to be talking about Inoki. But is the name Daniel Bryan going to be in the same context as Inoki? I doubt it. Inoki's like a legend. The amount of things that guy done, even outside the wrestling world, which you'll find out once the trivia show gets going. To me, it's Inoki. Inoki's name is just bigger. As far as a resume, if I seen Daniel Bryan, I seen Inoki's there. Oh shit, Inoki, he's in. So, but I understand why Daniel Bryan's in there. He's a hell of a wrestler and the Yes Movement and all that other. Oh, sorry, Kristen. Where am I? Oh yeah, that was right. So, anyways.
Okay.
I got lost.
No worries. without giving us your picks on this one, you have an idea of who you would vote for in this round coming up?
No, because I kind of stopped paying attention, so I can't even tell you who's won what round right now.
Well,
I didn't write it down.
As Chris has up on the screen, it'll be Kenny Omega taking on Randy Macho Man Savage. And
Okay.
in the other half of the bracket will be the Nature Boy Ric Flair taking on the American Dragon, Dana Bryan. So we're going to...
yeah, for me, Flair, as far as Omega and Savage, it's tough. It's tough for me because I think Omega's the better wrestler, but Savage, he just even crappy matches that he was booked on, he'd make them good. He's very much like Omega. Omega wrestled a 9-year-old, and the reason why he got that job is because he was trusted that much, because he's that good in the ring, that he'd be able to not only not hurt a 9-year-old, but actually put them over. So to me, it's tough. That one, well, that's your guys' problem, not mine.
So, yeah, we'll get back to you and see if you agree on what we decide on this one. And, so we're going to get on to the semifinals of tonight's bracket. I get to start this one.
So I'm gonna step in for a sec. Shawn, your vote doesn't count. My vote doesn't count. Give the floor to Steven. And Steven, I know you're gonna vote, but put some thought behind this. I want to know why you're picking who you're picking. Because Shawn's gonna vote Savage, correct? Shawn?
Yeah.
I'm gonna vote Omega.
Shocking.
So yes, it's Steven's the only vote that counts in this one. And you kind of wonder why we have to do things in odd numbers. This right here is why. You got Shawn's favorite wrestler versus one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers. So this right here is why we get to do the show in odd numbers. So Steven, it's all up to you.
Well, I was leaning one way until Jonesy reminded me of something.
I saw your head hang.
Girl. He wrestled a 9-year-old girl.
Didn't he also wrestle a blow-up doll?
Yes, thanks for fucking just piling on. You got anything over there, Chris? No?
I can't argue with that. It's fact.
AEW with a thong and baby oil involved in his match.
That's great, but how many 6-star matches did Macho Man have besides the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat one?
Could you ever see fucking Randy Macho Man Savage fucking wrestling a 9-year-old girl or a blow-up doll?
He made DDP a success. Had DDP still been doing what he'd been doing before, he got into his feud with Savage, DDP would not have been considered for World Championship material.
So I'll give it this. In their primes, it would be one hell of a fucking matchup because Savage was crazy as shit and in shape and had a technical wrestling ability to him. Omega the same way. But the fact is, it's and you can't even compare championships here because the fact is you think IWGP, it's Omega. You think WWF, it's fucking Savage. And you can anyways, Steven, I'm going to shut the fuck up because I'm going to start blowing a gasket here.
Well, I'm going Kenny Omega. I can't deny, as much as I fucking hate that he's wrestled a 9-year-old girl and the fact that he's wrestled a blow-up doll, I can't deny what he did in Japan. I can't, as much as I want to, but I'm going fucking Kenny Omega.
Okay. Which then brings us to Chris with our Ric Flair versus Antonio Inoki, the Battle of the Legends.
So I'll tell you this. So Kenny Omega was in New Japan for 3 years. The amount of stuff he accomplished was phenomenal. That's all I'm going to say about that. But when it comes down to Daniel Bryan and Ric Flair,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and Daniel Bryan, why did it say Inoki?
that would be interesting as well. But
I looked at the wrong list.
Yeah, I do believe they've actually fought. But when it comes down to it, you can't compete with Ric Flair. Daniel Bryan, as much as he accomplished with that championship, fact is Ric Flair accomplished damn well more than expected with the titles that he had. And the fact is, when it comes down to it, broken back, the surgery, the names that Ric Flair had wrestled to win those championships, even just do that. You think Daniel Bryan, that first championship that he won was Batista and Randy Orton in that match? Look at the names that Ric Flair beat to win all the championships that he had, including that Royal Rumble. You know what I mean? And I think he was, number 2 or 3? I think maybe 3. Yeah, number 3 in that Royal Rumble. So the fact is, 16-time world champion, and you think of the guys he beat to win that title. Yeah, Ric Flair, hands down. So, Steven?
I love the American Dragon. I love what he was and how he wrestled, but you can't go against the Nature Boy. I'm going Ric Flair, 16-time world champion. I gotta go Flair. Also, I want to see Flair beat Omega in the final, so.
Yeah, well, we're going to have Flair and Omega in the finals. So my vote was also going to be for Ric Flair, regardless of who he ended up against, as much as I love Daniel Bryan as well. But Ric Flair, legacy over what Daniel's accomplished. Yeah, can't deny it. And wheeling, dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, Space Mountain. He's moving on to the finals against Kenny Omega. Jonesy, would you have expected that, or did you think Savage was going to advance?
No, I'm not surprised. But as far as Omega and that to me, that match that he did with the 9-year-old girl, which was, I put it on the side, it was a demo match, and I think it was at a convention or something, and so it wasn't on a regular card. And the crowd knew that, obviously a 9-year-old would kick the crap out of Omega, but, the girl would, let Omega have that, victory. But anyways, and hey, Savage used to read the storybooks to children. If you ever see the videos, they're hilarious.
And he can snap into a Slim Jim.
Sorry?
And you can snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah.
I just realized I have my other speaker on. That's why you're probably hearing echo.
I bet.
There will be no echo.
There we go.
There must have been a bitchin' echo. So, as far as Omega versus Flair, all I'm going to say is, except for AEW, I've never seen Omega have a bad match. I've seen Flair have bad matches. And yes, Flair is amazing, but as far as in the ring, Omega is so much better. Maybe not at selling and stuff like that, but as far as the technical part and just like I'd say he's as good as Flair as far as getting the crowd into a match. There's an aura about him, more New Japan than AEW, but and hey, AEW is just using his name, really. That's why he's there. They don't need him to wrestle well, unfortunately. But for me, it would be Flair. Sorry?
I said they need someone to wrestle good.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't watched. I watched the first couple weeks, and I thought the wrestling was good. I guess it's changed. I can't really except on YouTube, and I don't want to watch all that stuff on YouTube. There's just too much wrestling. That's my problem with today. There's too much damn wrestling to choose from.
Yeah, AEW is not wrestling. That's not encouraging.
So we'll save that debate for a Thursday night, especially after Steven's gotten to sit through an episode of Dynamite. As you saw, Chris had up the finals. It's Omega versus Flair, and we're going to.
What I'd like to know with Steven is, did he know all along that, you know what? I know Flair's getting through, so it's like, what is it? Paper, scissors, rock, and Spock. Nothing beats Spock. So, anyways,
I already knew where Sean's head was at, so.
What do you mean?
I knew you'd vote Flair. So I wasn't sure about Chris, but I knew it'd be Flair.
Well, you seem surprised that I picked Flair over Hogan.
Well, I didn't expect 3-0 Flair over Hogan.
So, yeah, everybody's made their way through. We're up to the finals. And, Steven, you get to start us off.
Well, someone who wrestled a child or 16-time World Heavyweight Champion. Ric Flair. And that's going to be your winner.
Chris, your pick.
What the hell? Why are you going with me?
Because he's going to pick Omega and fucking piss me off.
No, I think Shawn's putting himself in the spot that he's going to be the tiebreaker because I think he knows where I'm going with this. So when it comes down to legacy and the careers and the establishments and everything else, Flair, as great as he was, and I'm biased as fuck with this, and I swear to God, I'm sorry, but the fact is I got to go Omega. And it's even when you go, like I said, and we are Wikipedia fans as far as this tournament goes, as far as, well, as far as anything else goes, we are wrestling fans. So it was, we are great with who we follow. Shawn with Savage, myself with Omega. Fucking Steven can probably shout out a whole bunch of Jim Cornette facts, just at the top of his head. But the fact is, when you look at Omega's stats and you look at the fact, like I said, just his New Japan career, the fact how he went from junior heavyweight into heavyweight, went with it, ran with it. AEW is putting him to shame right now. But the fact is, where is he going to be in 10 years? How much is he going to accomplish? How much would he have accomplished if he got a WWE as far as AEW? So, anyways, like I said, biased as fuck right now, but Omega. So, Shawn, break the tie. Who's fighting Jericho in the Final Four?
The symbol of excellence.
Thank Jesus. I was going to come through and fucking beat the person.
You can't beat it. Woo! So yes, Ric Flair is taking it. He's going to the Final Four, which will happen on TNT in just over 2 weeks' time. 2 weeks tomorrow when you see this video. And so we'll see who else over the next 2 weeks joins Chris Jericho and the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. Jonesy.
hey.
Were you surprised?
No, I'm not surprised. And you know what?
Would you have voted? Who would you have voted?
More than likely, I would have voted Flair, just because, again,
You have a brain?
Flair's name and his legacy. It's like, has Omega reached that yet? No. Will he by the end of his career? Probably not, but who knows? But what I would like to see is, like, Omega not going to WWE, I think is fine, but why doesn't WrestleMania just hire a guy like Omega later on in his career, once he's doesn't have a contract with someone, get the best wrestlers to actually just have a match at WrestleMania? They don't need to be tied to anything. WrestleMania is supposed to be the best wrestling event. Why not start getting some outside stuff going into that? And I know what the answer probably would be why they don't do it. Monies, license fees, and all that other stuff. They want it all.
So, guys, your thoughts on the how it shook out this evening?
If Omega is facing a lot of some of the other people, I might go a different way, but it's Ric Flair. I mean, if you look, a lot of the guys in this bracket could have won, could be considered in the top four. Hogan, Omega, Savage, Flair won, Inoki, American Dragon. There's a lot of guys that could have, depending on how the bracket shook out, could have won a bracket.
So I guess, yeah, like it could have gone to a lot of people. There's a lot of gold that are in this bracket. But I guess the biggest question for all of us, of the other 15, is there anybody who could have taken out Ric Flair that did not go against him in this bracket?
Omega.
He did go against Flair in the bracket and lost.
See, this is why I'm going to vote for the next couple episodes. We do a 5-man tourney because I always know where Steven's going to vote. I always know where Shawn's going to vote as far as Savage fucking Omega shit goes. But this is why we need the 5, because you get a guy like
voted for Omega up until the last round.
Yeah, again up until the last round. Omega would
fucking Ric Flair.
Think about it this way. Yeah, but the tough aspect is no matter if we're 5 people or 3 people. You think of the last tournament that we had done last week, it came down to AJ Styles and Chris Jericho. 2 tough calls right there. This tournament comes down to Ric Flair and friggin' Kenny Omega. And I mean, it's tough. I mean, and all the guys that were in this bracket, Hogan's gone, Savage is gone, Omega's now gone. You know what I mean? And then 3rd round, 4th round are going to be just as tough. So it'll be an interesting Final Four. I tell you that much.
And
we still have Steve Austin to come, and
you got Rock.
The Rock's fighting Okada first round.
Yeah,
that I'm gonna bail out and say I'm not voting on that one.
You've got, and honestly, if Kenny Omega faces Daniel Bryan in the finals, Hulk Hogan in the finals, anyone on the other side of that bracket minus Ric Flair, he gets my vote in the finals.
So I'm gonna see if I can garner some interest here. So. Episode 3, so what we're calling the East bracket, by the way, and you'll see it promoted on the next show as well. CM Punk, Terry Funk, Conan, Adam Cole, Goldberg, Ken Shamrock, Killer Kowalski, Big Van Vader, Bob Backlund, Steve Austin, The Great Muta, Dory Funk Jr., Nigel McGuinness, Kurt Angle, and El Texano Jr. against Rugged Ronnie Garvin. So again, tough matches. And then again, when you get down to the later stages, as we talked, The Rock taking on Okada first round. And then the biggest match, I think, probably as far as this tournament goes, besides that one, Brock Lesnar taking on Bruno Sammartino. So, I mean, that's old school versus new school. But if that was a real life fight, I don't know who I'd go with, because you've got a guy who is champion in 7 years against, Oklahoma steady as far as the power that Brock Lesnar has, So it's a lot of tough matches.
There's another one in the bracket D. Nick Aldis, Bret Hart. There's some very
tough calls.
Yeah,
I'm actually very interested in the Goldberg versus Shamrock.
Okada versus The Rock. Fuck.
And if I recall right, because I saw him just this past weekend, I believe Clarence is returning for episode 3, the East bracket, to help break that down. So it should be all 5 of us.
Well, that'll be good. So, again, I'll do the promo work here before Shawn officially signs off. But Nature Boy Ric Flair is your winner. You'll see him in the Final Four taking on Chris Jericho. That'll be live on TNT Thursday Night Throwdown, as well as a joint thing with Scumbags of Wrestling, July the 9th, taking place on the episode of TNT, as well as Scumbags. The other two to be determined. Hopefully it's Okada or Rock in there. But a lot of good matches taking place. So you can check us out at ThursdayNightThrowdown.ca. as far as any of the links go. Scumbags Wrestling Group on Facebook, as far as any of the promo work goes as well. cwnonline.ca. I've been posting on there as well. But it's a huge tournament, and I love the concept of the fact that we went 64 4 weeks and then doing a live Final Four. It'll be like the day after the West bracket airs on YouTube. But it's been great. Shawn's been good as host. See you later, Savage. Unfortunately, see you later, Omega. But it's fun having this, because the fact is you never know sometimes who you're going to vote with. And with me, with this bracket, Hogan versus Thesz, I had no idea who to go with, and there's going to be a lot more like that. Jonesy, you've been great with the stats. The Orville Brown thing. It'd be interesting to see who maybe he would have won against Great Khali, But it's tough to see somebody like that when all of a sudden you see the comparison, the 1948, 1949 retirement, and you compare him to like a guy like Magnum TA. But it'd be interesting to see episode number 3. I think we'll all be part of it. And then Shawn, you had said Clarence going to be part of it as well.
That's what he said. As long as we keep to our schedule for him to be here, then he's a part of it.
All right. So, any final thoughts, guys, on the show itself? Anything that you guys want to add?
I'm very surprised that
dude, if we get kicked off of YouTube again, I'm not creating another channel.
I'm surprised Flair beat Hogan 3-0.
Fucking Steven the Instigator, play Flair's music out. Screw that shit.
Gotta get you going. It's fun.
So I think 2001: Space Odyssey is public domain. So
I am a shit disturber. You're welcome.
Woo! Symbol of excellence.
All right, so we'll leave it at that. Shawn, why don't you promote your Scumbags just while you can, because you won't be on this Thursday's show.
Yeah, just dropped the Scumbags Wrestling episode number 110 the other day. A little bit behind, but because of all of the news that was coming out with accusations, didn't want to totally jump the gun and make it a fully gossip show. So really, I took a lot of what we talked about at the roundtable discussion from Thursday with Chris, Steven, and I, and include that in this episode because it's a lot better than me just talking about it myself. And we did a good discussion, I think. Just there's so much more even to come out since we recorded the other day with more people. So we'll see what happens over this week. Who would have figured COVID-19 shuts everything down and there's more wrestling news going on during downtime than when it's active. But yeah, Scumbags Wrestling, we are going to do episode number 111 this weekend. And as you saw at the beginning of this show, contact me to get your Scumbags Wrestling t-shirt designed by Nigel Lewis of NCL Studios. Money's going to go to Steven's Wrestling Journey at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. And you got an awesome shirt with 22 stars of the Ontario wrestling scene in comic book form. The talent really love it, and they've been buying posters and T-shirts themselves. And you don't want to miss out, and also help a good cause.
So just out of curiosity, just so we can get this on the air, you're ditching TNT this Thursday to go see what movies?
I'm going to go see Grease and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because those are the only good movies been showing at the drive-in. And with my wife being basically on lockdown except for working, she's going stir crazy, so we're going to have a date night.
So Ferris Bueller's Day Off, I can't watch enough of. Grease, yep, forget about that one.
It's all good. Grease is my all-time favorite movie. I remember it earliest memory at the age of 2 in the back of my parents' car at the drive-in. So
we may have to permanently replace you this coming Thursday. Grease is your all-time favorite movie?
Well, because it's my earliest memory and I love the music.
Yeah, see, mine was Star Wars. So, and again, I love that music. So, why don't you
Golden
sign off?
Pond
So we can.
For me,
What's that?
On Golden Pond for me is my favorite movie.
Don't think I've ever seen that one. I might have to look into it.
No, really, I've also seen the play.
It's called On Golden Pond.
On Golden Pond. It's Henry Fonda's last movie.
Huh.
He was very sick when he did it, and a lot of the story between the father and daughter was actually also true to both of them because they were father and daughter. It's a great movie, family movie. It's definitely a daddy movie. Any daddy would just love to watch that movie, I think. I know my daddy loves it.
I'll have to seek it out on Netflix.
What caused all this commotion tonight? What caused all this? Woo! Come on, I'm trying to put catchphrases of his in there and not giving me any help.
We get enough of the four fingers going on here. So, Shawn, why don't you sign off so we can go watch the On Golden Pond movie?
Thank you, everybody, for being a part of it. Chris, and Steven. Can't do it without you guys being a part of it. And, hopefully everybody's enjoying this who are watching it. We have 2 more brackets to go before the finals, so tune in every Wednesday on our YouTube channel, and let's have some fun. So thanks, guys.
All right, see ya till next week.
Yeah.
Bum 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 bum.
These bills on payments, well, it's no sin. It gets me one day, I'm scared the next day. I got